Hey folks, welcome back to the Pulse. My name is Matt. This is Crypto Heartbeat. It is 3:30 Central Texas time, and I'm so glad to see you. We got a really good show for you today on the Pulse. Get rich by association. It could mean so many things. What does it mean? That's what we're going to be talking about today. And I'm really excited to share this with you because this is really something you need to be aware of. It really speaks to the future of crypto. It speaks to the future of how do we save this place? How do we save this place? How do we invest in the things that give people more freedom and more sovereignty? How do we give people back this ability to generate wealth and to keep it in a place that is secure and is promoting sovereignty, if you will? We've got some great people here with us today already in the chat. So let's say hello to you, and then we'll jump into the content, and then we'll have a conversation about it. I'm excited about this, and I want you to know, because I think this is basically a little bit of looking into the crystal ball, which I've been doing a lot of streams on tokenization, real world value, real world assets, those type of things. And this is no different. So thanks for being here. Check my pulse. The RH team. Good afternoon, Matt. Finally catching you live. Thanks for being here. What is up, y'all? Ego Foundation with the hello. True Blue. Hex Enthusiast. Hey, mate, same camp. Thanks for joining. Francis Powell, how are you, sir? Great to see you. Rich Liberation, Taryn, Texan, Paulo. Good evening from the Netherlands. Great to have you. Actually, we're going to speak about farmers, as a matter of fact. And I know the Netherlands are concerned about their farmers and nitrogen. Let's set the captives free. OX Will, what's going on, Will? And Fallen Comrade, what is going on? Great to have you here, folks. All right, here we go. We're going to jump right into this. So how do you get rich by association? Did you know that there are over 35,000 trade organizations in the United States? And these are trade associations, and there's many different types. And if you think about it, what do trade organizations or associations represent? Well, they represent an industry of people, and generally those people, for the most part, do something in our economy that creates value. Well, if there's anything we know about the crypto casino is it's not really creation of value, right? We know that as more people come in, there is more value that is brought into the system, but it doesn't create value on its own. And we know that, money, or in this case, a representation or a unit of account, is just a representation of real value. And what is that? Well, it's the things that we make or the things that we do. It's goods and services that are provided by our creative ability. And so instead of bartering anymore, we use a proxy for our labor, and that's the form of money. And so as we look at the blockchain and what has it enabled us to do, it's incredible. But how can we tie the blockchain to real money? Okay. Not just finding some people and going, hey, do your own research, but throw in your life savings, right? That kind of stuff, right? You've heard it before. That's a speculative asset. And so the focus that I have and our group has is how do we connect real world things and real world value so that it creates a constant inflow, but it is a mechanism by which people can draw other people in, right? If you think about crypto tied to associations or tied to real businesses, what ends up happening is people can invest in those businesses in a distant way and in an indirect way, which is really exciting for trade organizations. Many of you probably know this, but I worked in the nonprofit space for the last 25 years, and I've helped all kinds of organizations, associations raise capital. And this is generally through donations. But if you think about trade organizations, they struggle. And you may be a part of a trade association. It may do lobbying. It may do education. It may do a number of things. But generally, those organizations are struggling for resources. A lot of times they're membership based, but they're, volunteers and, they're limited organizations. And so what I'm going to share with you today is what I believe is happening with crypto in this quote unquote utility category. Rather than just tech, let me give you an example. Okay. And so I'm going to throw up a little example. So all these different industries, let's say, and I'm going to take an example, which is, let's take farming. No, let's take concrete. This is a good one. So I got a buddy who's in the concrete and asphalt business, and he makes a really good amount of money. And, Imagine all of us that are on this stream decided we wanted to get into the concrete business. Well, I'm sure there's a lot of capital that needs to go into that, but there are trade associations for those type of things. But imagine this, and this is in its simplest form. Let's say the group of us, we say, you know what, we live in different places, and concrete is a very local or regional thing. You don't ship concrete a long ways because it's heavy, right? Plain and simple. But you see those trucks, right, that are spinning, and they get up really early because they want to beat the heat, at least in the Texas sun. But those concrete businesses make a lot of money. And how do they make money? Well, they're laying foundations, they're doing all kinds of things, roads. I mean, there's just a lot of infrastructure type of things are building. Well, those are real value because people need homes, right? And so people exchange money for concrete. No surprise there. But let's say we all created concrete companies and we said, you know what, we're going to take 10% or we're going to take, I don't know, any portion you want, and it's really determined by how much you want to participate. But let's say we all agreed to do 10% of our profits. We were going to buy a token that is for our association, for our group that we have here, and it is called the Rock token. I'm making all of this up, of course. But imagine this scenario that there are, hundreds, if not thousands of different companies that do this sort of thing. And if you tokenize this industry, if you will, and this is where I believe things are headed within crypto, is imagine business owners, and they say, well, you know what? I want 100% of my profit. That's fine. Don't participate. But the groups that do, if you can establish around an industry a token, and people that are in that industry actually buy that token on a schedule, what happens is it attracts people from across the world being able to invest in, essentially like a mutual fund, that industry as a whole. Because as profits go up and they agree to do this, essentially there's more and more value that comes in as buy pressure. But right now in the crypto casino, it's like, well, we're really sad. And that's where everybody is right now. Nobody has any money. They're having to go back and get a job just to pay the rent. But what happens when crypto is tied to essentially these industries? And so the simple way is to say, hey, we got this company, we agree to do this deal, and on a regular basis, monthly, quarterly, we're buying this Rock token. Well, what happens when you have more buyers and sellers? The price goes up. What happens when there's green candles? People from across the world go, hey, maybe this is a good industry to invest in. Folks, this is not happening yet. We've got all these things related to technology and everything. What is going to ultimately happen is that we're going to connect industry through associations. Why and how? Because the focus that we have of tokenizing communities is that's where trust exists, right? In an association, the association exists to help its members. And what do its members do but try to, keep up with education, technology, all sorts of different things. There's lobbying, there's all kinds of functions that associations provide. And so the beauty of this is, well, how could associations participate in this and win as well? I'm sure that there's vision of the board of the association to do all kinds of things, right? But they don't have capital. And they come to me when it comes to fundraising. Like, well, how do we do this? How do we do membership better? How do we do this? Well, let's create a means of capturing more of the market when it comes to investment. And it's done through abstracting its value into cryptocurrency. But let's do that in the Pulse chain, folks. Well, what would that look like if people were in the Pulse chain with real value? Now imagine all of those people, right? All of those people that are in those businesses constantly buying. Well, they're going to hold token. That's a good thing, right? But for those who participated in it with them as well, know that real money comes in all the time, because what is happening in those businesses is they create value every single day, right? And it's bigger money, right? So as an example, one of the things that trade association tokenization and getting rich by association is people are in associations. Well, what would happen if you were in an association that was interested in understanding how to tokenize their community, but to do it in a way that provided benefits to their membership? Oh, wow, the association could win, and you could win because you would introduce us to that association. Secondarily, I want you to think in terms of this. I like using farmers. We have a lot of people in the Pulse chain and in the Hex community who really care about organic farmers, but one group of people that's really getting squeezed out is the family farm. And I don't just mean these really, really small ones, but there are family farms that are being driven out. I just, was looking at Paulo here. Good evening from the Netherlands. I mean, family farms, it's all becoming corporate. And someone said to me, months and months ago, hey, if you can figure out some sort of tokenization for family farms, that's so huge. Well, now watch this. Let's say you go to an association of family farming people. You say, listen, we're going to create the farm token, just whatever, right? Insert whatever name you want to, and show them how, by participating in a portion of what they do on a regular basis, attracts people from across the world to invest in family farming. There will be people who buy that token who do not have farms, who care about farming. But also, if you're in the right part of the cycle, which we know we're coming into, it could be incredibly beneficial to that association and to its members. But the beauty of this is it's a way in which you can utilize crypto as fundraising for associations, right? Because they would hold some token. And so the beauty of this is there's over 35,000 trade organizations out there, and all of them represent businesses that create value in this world. But no one of any legitimate presentation has basically said to them, here's how this tokenization would work. And that's the problem. Because when people look out at crypto, they see FTX, right? They see a lot of the shenanigans that are going on in the Pulse chain. They're like, I don't want to be associated with this. I mean, look at what we name our tokens, right? DTB, you know what I'm talking about, right? And people just get turned off by that. Well, what if the Pulse chain, what if we actually were bringing in and tokenizing, organizations that have real value, that their individual members make money? So imagine this. So I'll give you an example. Let's say in your concrete company or your family farm, you make X profits per month or per year, right? Well, you can make a decision. I'm going to keep all of that, or I'm going to invest in this cycle in this token. It's our association's token. Well, what happens? Well, more buyers than sellers. Excuse me, I got to push the cough button. More buyers than sellers. And it attracts an audience because it's global, right? People can see what's happening. Well, what happens if there is an upside, right? Because we know that the nature of these tokens is speculative, but it's also tied to something very real, because you can consistently see that, wow, the association is promoting to its members how buying this token with a portion of your revenue or your profits actually can help you gain more. It can multiply your profits. Some people will get it, some people won't. You might say, well, farmers aren't the most technologically advanced, but you might be surprised. But there are all kinds of industries that have not been tokenized, but they have trust. And that's the hardest thing when it comes to building communities who are promoting tokens. Right now, we're hoping that people are like, well, do I think that this meme is going to catch on and move up? No. What if it was actually tied to an industry? And when you think about it, what are the big industries? Real estate. I mean, there's all kinds of amazing businesses that have significant revenues. And there's people in those businesses that could benefit by tokenizing. And then we promote and increase the number of onboards into the Pulse chain, right? And so that's our ethos. That's our plan. That's what we do. We did this with the Texas Nationalist Movement, helped them raise money, and it was a donation phase. I think the things that we've learned since the whole sacrifice or donation phases is we've learned something. You can't and you shouldn't give tokens to poor people. And I don't mean that because you're not benevolent, you're not kind, and you're not compassionate. But at the end of the day, you have to put it in the hands of hodlers. Why did Hex work? And so I'm going to make a case that the reason that Hex worked in the last cycle is the exact same reason that this would work. You know what's amazing is, I've said this many times, but the reason that Hex was successful was not just because of Richard Heart. And I came in when I first started my channel and I said, look at the community that Richard Heart built. And you know what people said to me? They like stomped on my neck. They're like, Crypto Heartbeat, hold on a second. Richard didn't build this community. And they made a list of people. And at the top of that list was the pirate RG3. And so hats off to you, my captain. Think about this for a second. If it wasn't for RG, if it wasn't for dollar cost crypto, if it wasn't for Hexologist, and then, I don't know when they all came in, Maddie, Crypto Coffee, all these people, what did they understand? They understood that they had a great product, but no one knew about it. So what did they do? Well, a guy like, and I point out RG3 as an example of this because he had a lot of experience doing this previously. Did he own Hex? No. He saw an opportunity, and the opportunity was, hey, we can help people be their own bank. We can help them with trustless yield, and this is done in true DeFi, and they could take back freedom and sovereignty, and they could have their own, get a hold of their own financial future. Well, if you think about it, there's a whole group of network marketing companies that are built on that same premise. But a lot of times, whether a successful network marketing company works or not is the product. And what RG saw is amazing. He saw money as the product, and that's what crypto is. But you think about, what is Metcalfe's law? Why does this thing grow? It grows because it's like the square of the number of people that come into it, right? It's got this growth factor that happens when people come into the network. And that is extremely compelling. And what did we see? There's a lot of other factors that drove the success of a 10,000x in 623 days with Hex. It was at the right time, all kinds of tokenomics and all those things. So it certainly matters when it comes to Richard Heart and what he built. But it also is related to the goodwill that Richard Hart built. You know what Richard Hart was doing in those early days? I was watching some old Richard Hart videos. He was like, hey man, stop gaming, stop smoking, stop doing drugs, get focused, right? Get your health together, all these things. He was giving people good advice. He wrote a self-help book. The point though is, there's a principle in life. And if you read a bunch of self-help stuff, you'll know this. If you want to win, help other people win. That's plain and simple. You know it, I hope, but that's what RG3 understood from the very beginning. And I'm sure all the other guys did too. Hey, if we can help promote this, and of course, we kind of discount it. We say, well, you're just shilling. Well, no, what is the belief that's behind this idea of not your keys, not your coins? Trustless yield. What does it mean when it comes to immutability? These are good things that protect you. And so RG and others saw this and they said, you know what? We need to get behind this. So now think about that concept. He had to build, and everyone in this community came to this somehow. I came into this community because of a TV ad. Can you believe that? Well, there other people come in for different reasons relationally, but the trust had to be built organically, right? Hey, great product, and shine a light on this product, and let's get into let's do meetups. And what has blossomed out of this is actually what already exists in so many other places, and that is community developed. And then people like Matty Allen, they put together all of these meetups and all these conferences, and you go there and you high five each other and you get to meet each other, and you're like, hey, I really like you. Hey, Kadium's a good dude, man. And don't get on the wrong side of that guy. You see what I'm saying? But when you have an association, you have a group of people, they're used to engaging with each other, and there's a general trust because you're in the same business. But we have to attach, in my opinion, we have to attach crypto to real money that creates real products and services. And we're essentially putting a blower on it. We're putting a supercharger on it. We're literally saying, look what you could have if you bring the world to you through giving them a means by which they can connect, by which they can invest in an industry. Now, you'd say, well, you can't convince a bunch of farmers to give their little bits of profits. No, you don't have to convince them all. The chart will convince the ones that are late adopters. If the timing is right. But I believe that the future of this is now, watch, why do we have 85% drops, right? We're in this fourth cycle of crypto. Well, it's going to end up leveling out at some point. What are the things that We got rugged, folks. We got rugged. Thanks for sticking around here. Yeah, major issue with internet. Like it literally went boom, it's gone. After what 600 videos, it hasn't done that much. Can you guys hear me okay? Yeah, it's like someone tripped and kicked the cord out of the wall. Oh, Will, you're absolutely right. We'll get it back, man. We'll get it back. Even my background's blown out. Dude, 102 people here. Thanks for joining in. So I'm gonna put some things back up here on the screen and we will get going. So hang on one second. All right, we're back. We're back. Thanks for sticking around. Man, it makes you like really hot when everything fails like that on you. So where I was with getting rich by association is there's an opportunity that exists to really do two things at once. One, we want to see the growth in the pulse chain, right? That's a big part of this. We want to see growth in the pulse chain. You know, it's been so down and down and down and down, but fresh solutions, right? Right now, it's like, hey, let's create a meme coin. Well, what's the destiny of the meme coin unless you've got whales who are supporting the price? And we see a lot of that happening out there, but that can only last so long, right? And we know that that era is going to come and go. And there's been a flavor of the month within Pulse Chain pretty much every month. But as we look at associations, and here's really the offer I want to make out to you. Many people out there are in different industries, and you have a trade organization or association. There's 35,000 plus in the United States. Well, who needs help? Well, these associations are struggling to bring value to their members, but also tokenization. So many people are like, well, we don't want to get involved with FTX stuff, and crypto is almost like a bad word. And they don't know. They need to be educated about what is actually the power of taking back at least a portion of the financial contribution that's not essentially directed by US inflation. And that's one of the things that I think is incredible about when you do tokenize is you open yourself up in your industry to the world. And then imagine there's somebody like RG3, right? Let's say it's a concrete guy, a local farmer, and there's influencers in these communities, and they start saying, all right, there's an incentive for me to tell people about this. Well, now you start promoting and say, hey, when you're investing in this, our token, when you're a part of this, you're a part of this community and you're helping and you're saying, hey, I want to support this. So the old model is, hey, write a check to the association, become a donor. This way is to say, why don't we participate together and win together? And that's really the point of this whole thing is that we understand that a rising tide lifts all boats. And so my goal in all of this is to say, there is a bird's nest on the ground. There are opportunities that are literally surrounding us, but we have to understand what makes it work. Well, community makes it work. We need a group of people who have trust together. Well, they already exist. The Texas Nationalist Movement, the organization and groups of churches in the Philippines with Ophir. The same thing is true with associations, but it's tied to real value, right? It's tied to people who generate profits every single month. But how do you help them leverage that in crypto? By bringing people in and abstracting the investment function, right? The rock token or whatever it may be. And so I see this as a real benefit because you don't have to have that many organizations or groups to move the needle because you know what thin liquidity looks like when you have regular buying. And if you don't do a distribution the same way, right? The association and everything gets promoted and they say, this is what we're up to. This is what we're doing. This is what we're tokenizing. If you want to be a part of it, you can support it. Well, look at how Hex was started in the beginning. It wasn't a sacrifice. You went into the adoption amplifier and you put real value. You put Ethereum in. Where'd the ETH go? Right? Well, that was real value that came in that supported it. I think the future, what we're going to see in this next cycle with associations and with real world values, we're going to see more of that. We're going to see less of these, like, let's do a sacrifice to grab people's money. And let's actually tokenize around real world value where actual goods and services are being produced that help and tie crypto to our economy. Because think about this for a second, folks. We only have one chance to tokenize a specific industry, and whoever gets there first wins. What if you're the person that has the relationship with the association? Do you think you would not benefit? Oh, yes, you would. For those who have ears to hear. So that's the incredible thing about this is we're looking for communities, large communities of trust. Well, they're in trade organizations. But you know what? You're not going to listen to your 22-year-old kid brother that's still on his mom's couch in the basement to tell you about crypto, right? You don't want some meme token guys telling you about how they're going to, oh, we're going to shill it and hype it up. No, you have to actually get professional. And frankly, if we're going to create real value in this thing for the long term, we're going to have to tie it to real world assets. We're going to have to tie it to real value creation. Tokenizing real value creation just means we can extend it to the world. Hopefully you're hearing what I had to say, because I think it's a tremendous opportunity. So you want to get rich by association? It's kind of a play on words, and it is a bit of a clickbait. It's a bit of clickbait, but the point is it's significant. And I think that there's a time, and it takes the right people to be able to communicate with this, folks. But here's the thing. Right now is the right time. Why? Because everything is down. If you look at altcoins, and I'm not talking about Bitcoin and Ethereum, they're certainly down 5% today, and it's been like the worst day in crypto this year. But when it looks at the altcoin, we've not had the altcoin summer yet. And people are saying, what's the catalyst for that? Well, it could be the ETH ETF, inflows, maybe. It could be lowering of interest rates. It could be Richard Heart winning his case and, a big, precedent set for the freedom of speech. It could be, I don't know, there could be global thermonuclear war, for God's sake. But the point is, it won't always be like this. And this is the time to build. And so what I'm suggesting to you is if you're somebody that's in an industry, you've got a business, you know that this stuff is true, because we are in a crypto casino. And ultimately what we're doing when we're buying into meme coins and all that stuff is we're just hoping that somebody comes along and you call the top before them and you get out and the dummies pay the smarties. I mean, that's really what this thing is about. It's abstracted stealing, right? Like if I go sit down at a poker table, right, which I love to play no limit Texas Hold'em, I come down and I set my money down, and that guy across the way, he set his money down. And outside of the rake of the casino, he knows I beat him with the cards. I take his money. He beats me with the cards. We know the rules when we go to the table. But so often what happens in crypto when it's purely speculative is that what's happening is it's like, that's why people accuse it of being in a Ponzi scheme, because you get people, they get sucked in. Oh man, I can get rich. Look at these green candles. When everyone knows that actually how you win is you buy low and you sell high. You don't buy high and sell low. But you know what? I came in my first, go around in crypto. I saw this happen all the time. Hype. And as soon as the top is called, and Richard's been brilliant about calling the top, all the whales are gone and it goes down 85 to 95%. And you're there for 4 years. And here we are, like literally gasping for breath and air. Well, what would happen is if we tied these things to industry and that these business owners and companies understood that this investment is one in which it draws in and capitalizes their industry in a new way. And it's a rising tide concept because there's constant buying. Now, it doesn't mean there's not selling, but you haven't given away a bunch of supply to a bunch of people who don't care. It's market buying, right? You start tying those things together, and there's all kinds of other things that can be done to help reinforce this. You can have groups of associations within a network. You can do those things on a DEX. There's a lot of ways. But folks, if we want to draw people in, we have to go and we have to speak their language. We have to bring benefits that they find beneficial. One of the frustrating things I think about, Richard promotes the postcards, right? Hey, you need a postcard. But when I look at the postcard, guess what it's doing? It's selling a feature, not a benefit. People do not buy features. They buy benefits. And what does it say on the top? 38% yield. That's not a benefit to anybody. That's a feature. Now, it's good to have good features, but you want to essentially sell a benefit. So what's funny is when I watched that TV ad on late night TV, what did I see? Do you want to be rich? Well, that's a heck of a benefit, isn't it? Do you want to be financially free? I'm not saying that's the one you got to sell, but at the end of the day, that's what gets people's attention. You're like, oh yeah, I'm kind of interested in that. Well, tell me more. But when you say 38% APY, what do people say? Okay, congratulations. Good for you. But when you think about what is the benefit of all of this, It's not tokenomics, it's not crypto. It's how do these tools help you and your business? Because what do you want? Right? And so I think what's really interesting is, let's say you took 10% of your revenue over the course of a year and you're in the concrete business and you put it into this rock token, and the association was promoting it because they hold some token as well and they want to be able to be, fund themselves. And let's say they stake that and they only use the scraped interest. What ends up happening is, one, they're more sustainable, they can do better work that can promote your industry. But then you are working with the association, they're bringing other people in business, and then the people that are around that are seeing the growth in this because it's market buying. And what ends up happening is there are other people out there, let's say it's family farms, who go, I don't have a family farm, but if we don't support these people, they're going to be literally gobbled up by the corporate interests. And so we have to think creatively, in my opinion, about how we go about onboarding. Let's not onboard just the onesies and twosies, which we should be doing. Let's onboard communities of trust. Because at the end of the day, that's the currency. The real currency is trust and relationships. And where does that exist? Well, it exists in a lot of places. Religious organizations, it exists in all kinds of things. But associations is a place, because generally the thing you care most about is your livelihood, and that's your business. And how do we tokenize and take that into the market? And that's good for us in many cases as the speculators. Do you want to tie yourself to the next meme? Right? Oh man, the names of the things that we create. Or do you want to tie it to something that you know is going to have constant buy pressure? Everyone got so excited. Remember K4K, my buddy K4K. What a great guy. Remember how excited he was about the buy and burn of PulseX? Okay, that's like a very, very teeny bit of every transaction. And it is awesome, right? But folks, we haven't experienced anything that is, sizable from that. But that was like this revolutionary idea of, wow, a buy and burn. Well, why? Because always a buyer, never a seller. Well, that's because we understand that if we can get a system to always constantly buy, that it's pressure to move in the upside. The same thing was true with Hex. If we can convince people to stake, that means they can't sell. There's a penalty for ending stake. Well, in this scenario, we're looking at the opposite side of it. We're looking at, this is constant buyers. And that constant buying without people having a bunch of free supply is a really good thing when you're moving up. Now, you could also use the other side of the coin, and you could say, well, what about in a down market? Well, I think what happens is, if you've got constant buying, right, you don't want to ride that down. You don't want to throw good money after bad. But the fact that it's tied to an industry is really unique. And I think that that's how this ultimately gets stabilized. But imagine this. Imagine, and this is the thing that I think is possible, because if something happened, in an association like happened with Hex, imagine what these business owners would do if that 10% of their profits that they regularly bought, right, DCA into their own industry token, what would end up happening? It would suck the world in, or a lot of people in, that care about what they're doing or like the green candles. And the interesting thing about them is, potentially the 10% that they allocated to this crypto project ends up being more than the total of the sum of their profits for the year. I mean, that's certainly the case. I remember meeting Balliet Brand. I haven't seen Balliet in a long time. But Balliet Brand was a guy who's like, hey, Matt, when $100 turns into $1 million and $1,000 it turns into 10 million? Yeah, I do. No, I don't. I didn't know what that looked like. I was like dumbfounded. Well, that's the thing. If we're going to bring people into crypto, it has to be on their terms, the benefits to them, not our features. And there's an axiom in the advertising industry. It says, tell me about my lawn, not your grass seed. Okay. And if you're anybody that's ever sold anything, this is true. Don't tell me about tell me about my lawn, not your grass seed. Everybody else wants to come in and tell you about their grass seed. Well, it's heat tolerant and it does this thing and all that stuff. And you're like, I don't care. The buyer does not care about the features until they understand the benefit to them. So tell me about my lawn. If I use your grass seed, what happens to my lawn? Well, it looks like you're a family man, and I know you like it. You don't like it when the grandkids are out there getting bit by those, red ants. Yeah, it's not good. No, it's not good. And all those, thistles and pickers and all those things. Well, if you use our grass seed, guess what? You're going to be able to have family barbecues outside where kids are running bare feet and playing football. That's a benefit. And so we have to meet people where they are. We have to understand what those things are. Crypto's got to mature, folks. We can't just shine a doggy logo in front of people anymore. We got to connect it to real value. And frankly, I think it's better for all of us that we have that connection to real value. And we can do that through associations. So here's the call to action. If you're somebody that's in an association and knows a group of people or cares about some association or group, make an introduction. We will be very faithful to share with them the benefits of tokenizing their community and how it, and then if you're the one that makes the reference and gets us in, there will be benefit for you. That's pretty exciting, folks. So you want to, like, let's say you're somebody like, I really want to onboard people into the Pulse chain. Well, we're not saying, hey, buy Pulse, and then they go search around and look for things on Richard Heart. No, we meet them where they are. We say, hey, here's a way in which your association can have more revenue to do more things to serve your members. Meanwhile, you can help those within your community connect to essentially a crypto token that exposes your industry to the world. And you can kind of win together if you're in the right part of the cycle. And that's where we are today. So I think this is really important. I think it's really a big deal. I think it could be something that would be transformative for the Pulse chain. And we are leading the charge. This is the tokenization of communities. But it's tied to real money, real buy pressure, not little teeny bits of each transaction. No, I'm talking about, there are some big significant industries that every single transaction has a significant amount of margin on it. What if people just allocated a little bit? That's helpful. But there's education, there's all kinds of things. And to me, I want to bring thousands of people into the Pulse chain at a time, not one or two at a time. And so that's our focus. That's what we're doing. I apologize for the technical issues. We'll say hello to you in the chat, and then we will wrap things up. Sorry for all of that was a shock to me when everything went black. Moondog, what's up, Moondog? Good to see you. Tin Top is here. Culture and grow alongside the Pulse chain one way or another. Up to us how much sweat each want to put in the soil towards permaculture principles, and let's slip into the specific. Yeah, slip that into the septic. Think about it. Let's go sink. And that may be it. Maybe it's a permaculture group. There are things that are industrial in nature, and then there are associations that are, I think, probably more. Yeah. I mean, it would work with any, group, but I think the key, the larger the better, and the ones that actually have resources, the better. Right. So, I think about this. What I'm not talking about is, well, I won't go there. You get my point. Magnus, what's going on? Hit the sub. Yeah, hit the like and the subscribe button. That'd be helpful. I appreciate that. We continue to talk about, and the theme really moving forward here is going to be significantly about real world asset tokenization, the tokenization of industry and associations, and how we bring significant adoption in. Because when this thing pops, folks, I saw it last time, it goes hard. And so we've got a number of things coming up. Richard Heart and what's happening with his case with the SEC. The other is the election. And frankly, those are big, big things. I don't know when this is going to turn around. There are some indicators. It could be, there could be catalytic events coming up. But I'm not a prognosticator. Yeah, Postcard guys kicked me out of the Texas and Guild Telegram group when I dare call out Richie on some leadership issues. But for ears to hear, yeah, a real estate best-selling author might have some value to share. That's you, Moondog. Yeah. It's basic. What I think is funny is people that haven't been in sales, one of the greatest things I learned, I'll pass on a little wisdom to you. I used to think that design mattered, right? Like designs and the way that you design stuff. And I learned the hard way. Did you know what the number one determiner of marketing effectiveness is? The number one key to success in marketing is the list you start with. Number one. If you have a bad list, I don't care how good your message is, and I don't care how good your creative is. So the number one determinant is having a good list. Who is your audience, and is it a good audience, and do you have contact with that audience? So that's number one. Number two is message, right? People buy benefits, not features. And then three is the creative. Most people get it all wrong. They're like, it's got to look pretty. Well, send a pretty thing to people who don't care. See how that goes. What's up, BTFD? Specifically on the postcard game, which has been dominated by the industry. he spent the previous decade playing around in. Do it myself, most case scenario. Well, I'm not sure what you're saying there, buddy. Um, where is the Ginger Giant? I don't know. Ask him, dude. He won the Manek thing. Did you see that? Him and Gary Woods. So Gary Woods was number one in the lightweights category. Brandon was number three. He's out there shilling the pulse chain to the big boys. At least that's what I get from that. Susie Q, hey, amazing Matt, good to see you. I just visited Sandra. Oh my goodness, she's got the superpowers. It's her new book, Somatic Superpowers is her new book. Well, she needs to come on. We need to see her again. We need to give her some love. Tell her, if you see her, that I would love to do that. Sandra is a beautiful human being, and so are you, Susie Q. Daniel, in my opinion, we need to talk about Texan and Ophir sometime again. We certainly do. And you know what's interesting about that? It's funny that you say that. Texan and Ophir, you know, when you think about tokenizing communities, and I'm going to give you my perspective, why you haven't heard me shill it, because it's not my responsibility. And I say that honestly, and it might sound offensive to some people. When you create something, you write the code, you advocate, you help raise $1.5 million for the TNM. There's a point in which the kids have to take what they have, right? You know, leadership is important, but the question is, who's going to take it from here, right? And I think that that's one of the things that I learned from Richard Hart significantly is if you're relying on Richard Hart to do the work, this isn't a VC-driven thing. It's DeFi for a reason. And you know what I would say is whether it succeeds or fails is not up to me. And I think it's really important, you know, and it's not up to John with Ophir. It's for people to realize, okay. And I think a lot of this it's hard when you see this. It's like, who's got money right now? You know, everybody's been trading it around in like 50 or 60 different meme coins. And clearly people are completely sacked out on this stuff. And there's not a lot of new users and there's a lot of FUD. But that will turn around. It'll change. I saw it when it happened before. Folks, it just changes. And the sentiment changes overnight. And people go, yay. And then when all of this shifts, Richard will shift too. Why in the world? Everybody's like, Richard, you got to pump my token or, you know, throw all this money in. He's made it really clear that that's what he's going to do, right? When you saw him get into ETH and when you saw, you know, these little buys here and there with wallets, it's just an indicator of, yep, we're waiting for the right time. But who in the world wants to swim upstream, right? And who wants to, if a bunch of people are dying on the vine, right? They're living off of their Hex Yield or whatever the token is, and they're selling. It means they're not creating new value. And so you want to shake them out at the bottom. That's literally the benefits of the bottom in crypto. And so it's the people that have real value and creation of real value that don't need to sell tokens. And those are the ones that win, right? But if you're relying on crypto and whatever those crypto tokens are for your expenses, you're going to lose a lot of crypto in the bottom of the market. And I think it's part of the plan. But Daniel, you make a good point. I want to talk about it as much as anyone wants to talk about it. The question is, I think the number one person that should care about it is the TNM. I mean, they got $1.5 million in token, and it's their cause. I'll support them, and I do support them. But I think it's really, anyway, I just want to give you my opinion on that because it's a great question. But, you know, we're moving forward because at the end of the day, if things don't catch on, right, if people don't understand it, and Texas independence is different because it's political. On the political side, there are going to be things that are really catalytic. And we've seen these things come up and down, right? The election is so big as it relates to Texas independence. If something happens to Trump and he is incapacitated or it's a completely rigged election, which both are very possible. I mean, Texas independence and Texan token, like, hello. So good question. Community at scale. There you go. Dixon Cider, the most appropriate name in all of crypto. Matt, do you have the Benjamin Button syndrome? How is it possible that you look younger than the last time I was here like 6 months ago? Vitamin E, collagen? No, I'm going to tell you my secret. It's a new function on StreamYard, which is called Touch Up My Appearance. I'm going to take up that touch up and watch this. I'm going to click the button. Look at that. You can see all this disgusting face in detail, right? Now watch this. I have it on the first setting and it kind of softens my red rosacea. Now watch this. I'm going to put it on maximum. Look what it does to my face. It makes you look at that. It's like colorizes you. That's all it is. It's fakery. It's fakery, but it's a new function in StreamYard. But I'm glad that you paid attention. I'm going to take it as a compliment, even though I know it's modern technology at work. Permaculture was a bit of a clunky wordplay, but pointing towards the permaculture principles that have proven by fruit yield to work in the physical, translated to the ethereal digital playground. Woo, that sounds good to me. Question is there a lot of people who understand the exact same thing and understand the benefits of crypto and tokenization? And I would say, let's go. It's all Gouda. Liberty or death. Hey, Matt, I look forward to seeing you, what you accomplish. Great show, and God bless. Thanks for being here, man. Appreciate that. Wise opinion on stewardship responsibility. Try to build it so it can flourish as best as possible on its own merits and making sure it doesn't inadvertently developing dependency. Exactly. Awesome. Thank you. Tell her I said hello. Sandra Larson. Okay, folks, most of you don't know Sandra, but back when I started, Sandra was so nice to me and so supportive, just like Susie Q. And it really, really encouraged me in those early days. And we got on some streams, and as Brandon would say, we chopped it up. And it is so good to see you. And to me, it's like the groundhog seeing its shadow. You know, Sandra Larson's back. Maybe you are the bottom signal that we need. I need one of those buttons in real life. Yeah, don't we? We need that. Like, improve my look. M. Condor, what's going on? Susie and I just spent the morning walking the beach. You know what is so great is that whole grounding thing. And who am I? I'm no expert. You're the expert on this. But I've been looking into that, and this whole idea of walking barefoot on like the grass and on the beach and all that stuff is good for you. Sandra Larson, thanks so much for being here. You are still have the wrench. Yep. You are heralding the new all-time high. Let's go. And speaking of that, I just want to give you some encouragement. So I'm going to shift gears from the topic, and I'm going to give you some encouragement. Folks, it's always darkest before they turn on the light, right? That's a Moonface Martin quote. And if you can name that play, I'll be impressed. Folks, here's the thing. These things are all cycles, right? What do the markets actually show us but human emotion, right? We think it's all, I am using my Fibonacci sequence, and Sandra would tell you it's all frequency, right? And so if you think about this, everything is frequency and wave. And so what are you seeing when you look at the charts? You're just seeing basically the human experience modeled out depending on the time frame. And so when you see this, that's why it's emotional by nature, because the collective is essentially conscious, right? And it is affected by all of these things in its aggregate, and it goes like this. It goes up and down and up and down. And, some of them are super volatile, right? Like crypto and these new things, very volatile. And then they become more mainstream and they kind of smooth out a little bit, but they still have these cycles. And so we're at the bottom of this cycle when it comes to altcoins. But let me remind you, we have not had an altcoin summer, right? But why haven't we? Well, if we look at the last cycle, we had a tremendous amount of money printing. Remember that double top at 69,000 for Bitcoin? Well, I don't know if you recall this, but the Federal Reserve changed a data point in a spreadsheet and printed like $8 trillion more dollars. Well, they injected all that money into it, and what ended up happening? I remember back in the day when Robinhood app came out and all the young people were getting into buying AMC and GameStop and all that stuff. Remember when all the money was given as stimulus? That stuff all, got pumped into the marketplace. And people even talked about, well, if you had your stimulus money and how much in hex and all that stuff, they quoted that all the time. Well, what's happened? All that stuff's gotten clamped down. Interest rates are high. I mean, you can't buy a house these days. I mean, go to the pump or go to buy something. I mean, I feel bad for people who are literally living on the edge trying to determine if they're going to buy medicine or food. And there's a lot of people like that. And then I think of people that are getting close to retirement age and they're like working 6 jobs and they're or not 6, 3 jobs, 2 jobs, but they're working and they're like, I was hoping to enjoy my retirement with my grandkids. And they're like, this really sucks. What's the answer? Well, we have the answer. And so what I'm going to encourage you with is do your own research. Don't chase waterfalls, right? Don't chase the latest meme coins. Stick with what works and recognize the fact that if I'm going to bet somewhere, I'm going to bet on who has the money. I'm going to follow the money. There was $1.6 billion sacrifice for Pulse and PulseX. and a lot of the people are gone. And a lot of them took a loss, and they're like, "Ah, I don't like this." Well, that's what happens. It gets them shaken out. But the people who stick around, where do you think that money's going to go? Well, right now it's caught up in this fraud case, and he's not making moves. Well, and he's also not making moves because the market hasn't turned. I think he thought maybe that ETH was going to be pushing when it hit 4,000. But post halvening, we see this all the time, right? It hits the all-time high, then it kind of checks up and it accumulates. Well, it has to have a catalytic event. A catalytic event. Well, what's that catalytic event going to be? I didn't pronounce that again right. Catalytic event. Well, it's going to be something like, I don't know, interest rates being lowered. That's something that will be contributing to it or helpful. The money printer being turned back on because they're having to refinance all this debt. I mean, look what happened with the petrodollar, right? There's a currency war going on. BRICS is going crazy, right? They're getting organized. They're trying to compete with all this because we've outsourced all this inflation. But it's either a combination of money printer. I mean, the election has a big factor in all this stuff. And I wouldn't be surprised if, the current administration tries to prop up Biden with some sort of economic relief. They tried to buy it with the student loan stuff, but it's going to have, something's going to have to change, right? There's, and so either that or the whole thing fails. And either way, I'm okay with it. Because at the end of the day, money's going digital. And so what ends up happening in this thing is we're going to have an alternative. And so in a way, if the pulse chain is really going to be this place for freedom and sovereignty, everything else is going to have to either be compromised or fail. It's sad to think. It could get worse. But we're going to have that catalytic event. When is that going to happen? I'm not sure. But a lot of pent-up energy, a lot. And Raoul Pal calls it the banana zone. There will be another banana zone. And it's probably going to happen because something dramatic happens, because they have no choice. And that's what COVID was, right? It was totally one of these things where we need 2 weeks to flatten the curve. And then it was 2 years. And, you put everybody out of business and then you just gave them government handouts, right? There'll probably be another one of those too. But anyway, the point is, it's got to shake out. Because here's the thing. And when you think about it in a practical sense, who's got the ear of the administration or who's got the ear of the people of the Federal Reserve? Months and months ago, the National Association of Realtors sent out a letter going, dude, we're dying on the vine here. Do something. And you know how this is. Who are the people that have the influence and the pressure? And it gets, tough enough for them. And they got to do something. It's breaking. At this point in time, U.S. securities are the only place in the world where you can get any yield. Well, as soon as Bitcoin and Ethereum, they're going to make the first run, and then they're going to back off, and we're going to have altcoin summer. And then think about this. Some coins are going to do well just because they've got adoption. Like this, have you seen this hamster combat thing? They've got 50 million users in a week. But it's going to be things like Richard Hart, if he wins this case, right? Either they settle it or he gets the precedent that you're writing code to the blockchain, doing the math on the blockchain by paying the gas fee and writing to the ledger is speech. He's going to want to do victory lap after victory lap after victory lap and ask people to bow before him and kiss his ring. It's going to be really difficult to make that victory lap with Hex at the price that it is. So I think there's a lot of people prepared. I'm a big believer in Hex in the long term. Why? Because the guy that's got all the money cares about it, and he cares about you. And, Richard's not used to losing. And just look at his last tweet. Actually, let's look it up together. This will be really helpful. So if you go to the Twitters, the X's, and you look at Richard Hart. So I'm going to pull up this. I think this is really pretty cool. And it tells you something about where Richard's head's at. Okay. Oh yeah. This is more Richard congratulating himself, but he's making a really good point here. So let's check this out. Share my screen. Richard Hart. There we go. All right. Do we see that? Yeah. Okay. What does Richard say? Richard says, the reason I've been a winner my whole life, so Richard sees himself as a winner, is because while everyone else is broken and crying, demoralized, whining, begging, acting butthurt in public, having lost all self-respect, I just keep doing the best I can. It usually works out. Don't be a loser. Be persistent. I think that is old school Richard Hart, and I love it. He's going to be persistent. And one of the things I think is incredible, I said all the time, Richard Hart actually cares about you. Because here's the thing, I think if I was to do a poll and I was to poll, on Twitter, or just I had 100 hexagons or whatever, and I said random or 1,000, what percentage of people would say, why are you here? To get rich, right? So I would say the undercurrent of the younger crowd is when Lambo. Okay. That's great, right? That's what drives it. And Richard always knew that. That's why Hex had product market fit. So get rich, when Lambo, right? So that's what most people would say. What is Richard saying with this tweet? What is he saying? He's like, I've been a winner, be persistent, right? Well, if get rich was his goal, he's already rich, right? Besides all of the things he did previous to crypto, then where'd all the ETH go, right? All that stuff. The guy is a massive holder of Bitcoin and Ethereum. He does not need money. But here's the thing. If Richard had the same attitude that a lot of people in our community have, he'd be gone because you'd be gone. If you had Richard Hart's money, we would never see you again. We would only see you in a blur going by us. Yong! That's it. But when you get to that point, you realize money isn't the thing that brings you happiness. And you're like, well, maybe I ought to use this because I may want to use this to make the world a better place. Well, how do you do that? Is it longevity research? Well, what do you care about? Well, is it about, showing that writing to the blockchain is speech, just like any code or any authorship of any book or any writing that you author? Because you're doing the work, you're writing to it. He's helping educate, right? Keep people from getting wrecked. But I think that's the thing that most people don't see, is because they're focused on selfish ambition. And a selfish ambition is just me getting rich. I think what's amazing to me, and most people can't see this, is that this advocacy that Richard has, that cares about people, actually is concerned about you in addition to himself. Because what does he want? He says, I want the glory. I don't know that I've, met anyone as self-aware as he is. Because if you asked him, hey, are you a broken person? He'd be like, yep. Yeah, I'm chasing something I'm probably never going to get. But it's worth the chase because it does protect people. And right now it sucks. And everybody's like, oh, butthurt, like he says. Okay, fine. Be butthurt. But guess what? As soon as those things start moving and as soon as this cycle, shifts, Richard has the rocket fuel of the banana zone. Because you think about how things grow generally, he knows how, one, to protect price, but two, he's got the resources to do it. And they're sitting about $600 million worth that is probably generating yield in Spark right now that could drive this thing. But it's not like you rely on him to do it all, but it's nice to have a nudge. It's nice to have a prevailing tailwind, if you know what I'm saying. And that's what Richard Hart represents, in my opinion. So you should be encouraged. And frankly, these are heck of prices. I mean, this is amazing. But who's got a bunch of dry powder? People that have jobs that create real value in the real world. So to wrap it all up, if you're somebody that creates real value in the real world, like Moondog in real estate, well, there are opportunities with associations. I've worked with them for 25 years, and they're struggling to help their members. Well, tokenization might be a new way in which they can look at the fundraising world differently, that you don't just have to beg for money or just get it from memberships, but you can tokenize and win together in the next cycle of crypto. Thank you for joining the Pulse today. My name's Matt, this Crypto Heartbeat, and Sandra Larson's in the house. Suzuki, thanks so much. Take care of yourself and do not mess with Texas. Bye-bye.